Now that's more like it. Manchester United 4, Wolverhampton Wanderers 1. Look. I go into this match reaction here with mixed feelings. Mixed feelings indeed. Because yes, I'm absolutely elated about the win. However, people expect me now to flip-flop, right? To, get excited to say that Amorim is the best manager in the world and, to not stop glazing him until next time we play a game and lose. However, I'm going to stand firm ground with my opinion. I abide by what I said in the last match reaction against West Ham. I'm not going to flip-flop, right? However, I did say that Ruben Amorim should quit on a high note. And it surely would be something to get into form before Ruben Amorim gets sacked. And yes, lads, he will get sacked at some point. Listen, I'm absolutely elated about the win, as I said. Don't get me wrong. But I abide by what I said in the previous match reaction. I feel like we're in sync sound with this manager because on the pitch, he has no further competence on how to bring us forward. And that's down to his stubbornness. But as I say, I did mention that in the previous match reaction. So if you want to watch my full take on Ruben Amorim and his future, then go over there, have a listen, have a look. While you're there, if you enjoy the content, don't forget to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the post notifications. Also, do not forget to hype the video, please. This will help the algorithm to push the video to a new audience, as I'm hoping to now get my minimized goal from 100 subs to 60 subs until the end of the year. That would be absolutely amazing. Look, I know I haven't been as consistent. However, I've been trying to be as consistent as I possibly can. And look, shout out Bruno Fernandes, our captain, because the man plays in the 6 and is able to create more than Leonardo da Vinci. You know what I mean? Like, of course, I'm well aware that I criticised Bruno in the past for not having the physicality, not going into his battles. However, he is playing out of position, and the output he has as a 6 on paper is absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. A goal and an assist, right? I believe it was 2 assists even. I'm not entirely sure myself. But look, shout out Bruno Fernandes, who did it really well, who is coping very well in his position, and it would be a shame to let him go in January as it is rumoured. But look, as I say, I'm currently in this state where I'm doing this match reaction as mentioned with mixed feelings, because I've always wanted Amorim to succeed. I've seen him as the guy to take us forward, to make Manchester United a dynasty once again. However, as I've mentioned previously, and as I've mentioned just now in this video, his stubbornness on the pitch will not bring us forward, right? However, and I know I've said however like 5 times now, you know, people will probably go at me now and say, like, what's the point of sacking him? Because A, we would have to pay him a huge buyout fee, and B, like, who do we get in? And C, it would be an entire rebuild. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the thing is, I have a potential answer to this problem, right? I have a potential answer to this problem because, as I said in the West Ham match reaction, as a certain manager said, it is not about the system, it is about what you do with it. But, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned for that video, as it will be an extra piece that I'll be doing shortly. I mean, look, now to the match, right? The first half performance was far from ideal. Far from ideal. Going into, into the second half with 1 goal apiece on the scoreboard, with Matthijs de Ligt out, we let Wolves create chances. We let Wolves come at us, which obviously paid off as they scored in stoppage time. But, as I've been mentioning for weeks on my channel, the intensity and the desire to go for second balls is just not there. It is not there. We've kept 1 clean sheet this season. 1! And that was in the 2-0 win over Sunderland. And Senna Lamens' debut. Are you serious? Honestly, Manchester United is a team people used to fear. And now we've come down to, West Ham can draw against us because we're more open we're more open in the midfield than Bermudian open house do on Boxing Day, lad. It's just unbelievable. And as I say, Ruben Amorim's desire to make subs to interact with the players is far from ideal. One thing I will give him credit is his honesty. However, and again I've said it, his honesty I don't think will keep him his job necessarily. But as I say, first half performance was woeful actually. But the second half he came out with a certain sharpness, and that's what I like. The thing is, right, and something I've been asking myself for a long time is, if Ruben Amorim really wants us to play with more an intense system, then why can't we keep up the intensity for 90 minutes, right? And for people who are saying, the players are just not used to running through for 90 minutes, we have a whole week on the training ground to perfect his ideas and his visions exactly the way he wants them. And yet, still, intensity and desire to go for second balls is absolutely lacking. Look, next to Matthijs de Ligt, Brian Mbeumo has been the player of the season for me by far, right? Yeah, but, the second half performance, as I say, was great. Bruno with 2 assists, which was amazing. Mount gets back on the score sheet. I pray and hope to God we can keep this form going for a while at least. As long as the United striker can get himself a haircut by the end of it. Don't get me wrong. We're far from competing on the top half of the table, right? But we are getting there. And the real test, ladies and gentlemen, will be the next game against Bournemouth at Old Trafford. But, ladies and gentlemen, talking of Bournemouth against Manchester United at home at Old Trafford, stay tuned for the match reaction for, as I say, Manchester United versus Bournemouth. And as I say, ladies and gentlemen, that will be the real test to see if consistency is in the side. Granted, we've got a couple injuries, and we've got a few players out. However, it gives me confidence. 2 things give me confidence. 1, that we're at Old Trafford, and 2, that Bournemouth have won 2 out of their last 6. So, if we don't get a result here against Bournemouth at home at Old Trafford, and I can only put emphasis on this, then further questions need to be asked of Ruben Amorim and also the players, right? Because one thing's for sure, I'm letting none of them off the hook. But until the match action, ladies and gentlemen, we will see what happens. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will say thank you very much for watching tonight's video. I'm recording this just before the Bournemouth game, so I'm hoping I can publish it in time. Thanks very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. If you enjoy my content, don't forget to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on the post notifications, and don't forget to hit the hype button. So hopefully I can get 60 subs in the next 15 days, right? Until the new year. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. I will see you at the match reaction, Manchester United v Bournemouth. And with that, I'm saying, Scotty out. Peace.